Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to the full moon.
Full moon today?
I felt the full, yesterday was Chaturdashi. I'm a very sensitive man. Yeah. Me, ladies, werewolves, I'm in tune with the moon, my moon cycle. And today I just could not get out of bed. It was like a quadruple snooze for me. I was just like, it's draining. It's draining.
I think the full moon has risen yet. So, like, why is it affecting you already?
I don't know. It's got some pull. You know,
Okay.
It's got some pull. My Gus, even my dog, in the middle of the night started howling. I had to let him out, sleep on the couch for a while. It's powerful.
When Gus starts getting, loud, something's going on.
Something's up. He's in tune with the moon also. Me, Gus, the ladies, werewolves,
Oceans.
Anyway, we had a very, very nice program here last night.
For Nrsingadev. For
Lord Nrsingadev.
Yeah, I went to the Bhakti Center last night.
Really? You got out of the house at night?
Mm-hmm.
How was it? What'd you do?
I saw Maya there. I saw I saw a lot of nice devotees there. Did a little Nursingha Yagna Homa.
Oh, I thought you were going to say nursing. You were nursing?
Nursing.
I was nursing this little baby.
Saw a lot of nice people there. Met some others. Hello to Olga out there and all the Russian devotees that listen.
Really? There's Russian devotees that listen to this?
Yeah, in New York. There's
okay,
like a
Russian
whole
New Yorkers.
Scene Russian devotees in New York.
I got to come back to New York.
Come on back.
All right.
We were talking about us doing some kind of programs, somewhat regularly at the Bhakti Center. Remember that?
I always talk about it.
Yeah.
It's hard. Maybe. How about maybe?
Okay. All right.
Announcements?
We got announcements? Hand over the mic.
Josh Kane has an asana class today at 10:30 a.m. for our Patreon members.
Yeah.
We have Bhakti Recovery Group meetings at 12:30 and 1. And then on Sunday, there's no show, but there is a postural yoga class with Anu Lawrence Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern time.
So you don't get the Bhagavatam, but you get postural. What's it called? Postural yoga. That's good.
Okay.
All right. You ready for a little nugget today? I want you to read the nugget today.
Want me to read it?
I want you to read it.
Okay. You know where I got this nugget from, Raghunath?
No.
I got it from my book, 2,500 Anecdotes for All Occasions. You like that?
You just bring it, prepare for parties. Here's something like here's a conversation starter.
It's an invaluable aid to speakers, Toastmasters. Hey, that sounds like a good title for you, Raghunath. You're a part-time Toastmaster.
That's like a dead word. You know how they're creating all these new words, mansplaining and whatever like that. Let's bring back Toastmaster.
Okay.
That's a good word.
I knew you'd like that.
They're trying to bury words now and create new ones. There's some good old ones, people. Toastmaster. All right, so you carry this around from the 70s, probably.
This book I bought this at Strand.
You're such a New Yorker. I bought this at the
$7.50.
Strand.
But is this good
Like,
book?
we're not impressed with the Strand.
You don't have a bookstore like Strand up there, Raghunath.
You know what? We've got Chatham. The Chatham bookstore is very charming.
Okay. But it's a bit old. It's like it was published in 1942, so like it's not some of it's not quite PC, you know.
Right. Okay.
But this one is PC. I thought this one is good, and I think there's let's read this, Raghunath, and see what you think. Okay.
Yeah.
Ready? So a Chinese servant asked
already not PC.
I know, especially asked permission of his master.
What kind of?
Well, hold on.
All right. Okay.
But the message, I think the message is PC.
Okay. Let's just go by time and place here and try to understand the essence here.
I mean, to a Chinese servant.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we'd say employer, not master or something. A Chinese servant asked permission of his master to attend the funeral of a friend who was also Chinese. You following?
Yes.
Okay. The man gave his permission and jokingly added, right? He's like, I suppose you will follow the old Chinese custom of putting food on the grave. Ridiculous. Right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, was the answer. And, still laughing, the man said, when do you suppose the food will be eaten? You primitive, ignorant, whatever, right? So he's speaking down to him. He's
speaking down to his
like this ridiculous
primitive
student.
student.
The man was somewhat shaken out of his Occidental complacency.
Occidental, another great old word people don't use so much anymore. That was anything from the East.
No, from the West.
No.
Yes.
Occidental is from the East.
No, Raghunath. His complacency was Occidental. It wasn't Eastern. It was Western. Here's Professor Snooky's like saying, "Yeah, that's right. This has to do with the West."
Oh, the professor's against me.
Okay.
Occidental. Here's the definition.
Okay.
Of relating to, situated in the Occident, the Western. What the hell?
Okay.
I've been saying it wrong all these years.
Bring it if you're going to bring it back. Make sure you know what it means. Okay. Do you know what a Toastmaster is?
The guy makes toasts, right? Makes toast and nice type of crunchy bread.
Okay.
But really good at it.
Okay. So he says, and when do you think the food's going to... So Chinese people have a custom when they go to the grave, sometimes they place food on the grave, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So he says, and so when do you suppose that food's going to be eaten? And then the man was somewhat shaken out of his Occidental complacency when his servant replied, as soon, sir, as the friend you buried last week will smell the flowers you put at his grave.
I don't get it.
Oh,
he's like a Western guy who's criticizing Eastern rituals.
Yes.
For adding
more
food.
or less, he does the same thing, right?
You do the same thing. You do flowers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was.
What's the point here?
Well, there's so many points here, Raghunath. You have one. Think Rahugana. And
you're pretty good. You're stitching these two together.
Okay, we can stitch these together. You know, you had one person who was arrogant. You know, pride, Raghunath, right? Pride. When we say pride, and when we say pride, think, you know, that negative context, right? Pride, arrogance. We can call it arrogance if we want, right? But a lot of times within the Bhakti literature, the word pride is used, right? How this pride actually, it's actually bewildering. It makes you blind,
mm-hmm.
And it also it's due to an ignorance of spiritual reality, and it becomes also the cause of offense. Right now, here's this the master in this story is a Western person who's looking down on this foolish, silly Eastern custom. Why would someone put food on the grave, right? But he doesn't realize he's doing something practically exactly the same by placing a
Right.
flower on the grave.
Right.
You know, so this, you know, we can look at this in many different ways. One way to look at it is, you know, cross-culturally, right?
Right.
And you know, there's, you know, historically, I think it was worse in the past. The more that there is the effects of globalization, to some degree it decreases, right? Like you and I, when we were growing up, we didn't know any Indian people, right?
No, anybody. Actually, I did have an Indian kid in class, but I never even understood he was Indian.
You're like, he's Indian?
I was like, who's this guy with a weird name? Like, why does he have a weird name?
Okay.
I knew there was a Gujarati girl in my class. Now that I look back,
Yeah.
and it was hard. It was, yeah. It
You
was
didn't
like there was no, she was the only one, and she really stood out, and everybody was,
Okay,
you know,
so and whereas nowadays it's likely you have Indian kids in school. It's likely you know who
tons of,
Gandhi is. It's likely you know
yeah.
a little something about
We knew nothing. There was nobody.
Bollywood.
It
It's
was rare.
you've eaten Indian food. You know, it's like
Everybody, yeah, sure.
you know, and so you know, so cross culturally we tend to look down on other cultures, blind, not having the perspective to be able to observe our own culture. Right? Why was
Right.
he?
Why are we doing what we do? Why give a flower to a
Yeah.
dead body? I still wonder why about that.
Okay.
I sometimes want to go by graveyards and just pick up the flowers. Say, you know what? Let's offer these.
And so certainly there, you know, and historically, you know, looking at the Indian literature and you know, it was often looked down upon by the Western scholars, right, and kind of minimized in different ways, or you know, but we have to look at ourselves and see. Another thing about pride is what it does is it magnifies the apparent differences, and it makes one blind to the similarities in us. You know, how I am similar to you, how you are similar to me. You know. You know, but even you know, I saw another story in this 2,500 anecdotes for all occasions.
You've been waiting to pull this thing out. Is this where you get your?
I could have pulled it out a long time ago. I just thought.
This is where you get all your morning nuggets
I don't.
from?
I broke it out. This is the first time I've taken anything from it on this after 3.
It's because they're all racist.
No, but listen to this one, Raghunath. Okay, you know, because when I read this, I thought this is amazing. But think of this I'm going to read this, and then you tell me how you think it may relate to Indian or Vedic culture. Why are you laughing?
It's just I'm just thinking of all the potential other politically incorrect nuggets are in there.
It could, yeah. We're
okay.
delving into stuff. This is a story. First of all, it says Mrs. Isadore Straus. Now, why don't you just call her by her name? Why do you have to define her by her husband's name? Have you heard of Ida and Isadore Straus? Professor Snook's like, oh yeah, I know about them.
Isadore Straus, yes.
So actually, right across the street from my apartment where I used to live on 96th Street was the PS. I think it was PS 198, which is the Isadore and Ida Straus School.
Oh, all right.
But Isadore Straus he and his brother owned Macy's department store.
Really?
Yeah. But they were also famous because they went down the Titanic.
Really?
You're getting really interested. The Macy's thing was interesting.
The Macy's thing is Macy's an interesting store. It's like one of the first department stores.
Okay, but Ida, she became famous for what we're about to read, and there are many witnesses to this. So this is backed up.
The Titanic, man.
Eyewitnesses. Okay.
This whole material world is like the Titanic, isn't it?
I suppose it is right now.
We could do a whole Titanic episode.
All right, you ready? So Ida Straus was one of the few women who went down on the Titanic in 1912. Because mostly the women were given the boats and the men went down with the boat.
Oh, I get it. She was one of the few women that went down.
Women and children
must have been
first,
a lot of widower. Yes. I wonder if there's one man who was like, no.
Well, you see,
was everybody that noble? They talk about a noble time. Was everybody that noble?
You hear about it. Isadore and Ida right now, Raghunath, and you may be eating your words, okay?
Really? Did you see the Titanic, the movie?
Yeah.
There was like an orchestra playing, like a little chamber
Yeah.
ensemble playing, and the captain was like, "We're going down." Was it really like that?
Well, just
Maybe.
here. If you want to know, I'm going to read you a fact eyewitness,
Okay.
account.
Okay.
Okay, so Ida Straus was one of the few women who went down with the Titanic in what year? Do you know?
1912.
Oh
No.
yeah, Rockanath, you nailed
Was it?
Yes.
What?
Nice.
Oh,
In 1912,
God.
she went down because she could not bear to leave her husband. Both he and she were calm throughout the
Oh,
excitement
okay.
of loading the lifeboats. Both aided frightened women and children to find places aboard them. So they were helping.
They're
other
helping people.
They're helping people. Finally, Mrs. Strauss, who had been Mr. Strauss, who had
She
been
had. Okay.
finally Mr. Strauss, who had been urging his wife again and again to seek safety in a lifeboat, forced her to enter one.
Get in the lifeboat.
Boat.
Yeah.
She was no more seated, however. It's kind of written in this old language, right? She was, but as soon as she was seated, she got back up.
Right.
She was no more seated, however. Then she sprang up and got to the deck before her husband could stop her. There, she caught his arm, snuggling it against her side, exclaiming,
I will die with you, my love.
"We have been long together through a great many years. We are old now. Where you go, I will go."
Wow. That's beautiful. People,
Okay, well, no. And I did a little research on this too, Raghunath, okay?
this is the love episode.
Well, this actually, this was found in the 200 and 2,500 anecdotes for all occasions. This was under the heading of devotion. Okay.
Okay.
So, but here's a little bit more about that incident. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, here we go. The story of Ida's bravery and loyalty. Oh, well, let me go up. On the night of the sinking.
If they both died, who wrote this?
There are eyewitness accounts. I told
Oh.
you that already.
Oh, okay.
On the night of the sinking, Isidore and Ida were standing near a lifeboat, number 8, in the company of Mrs. Strauss's maid, Ellen Bird.
Mm-hmm.
Although the officer in charge was willing to allow Isidore to board the so even the husband, they were going to allow the husband on because he was like this wealthy guy, I suppose.
Right.
But he said,
You
no,
could
no.
Buy your way on the boat.
Although the officer in charge was willing to allow Isidore to board the lifeboat with the women, Isidore Strauss refused to do so while women and children still remained on the ship. He urged his Ida to board, but she refused, saying, "We have lived together."
Oh my
What?
God.
Why are you laughing?
I'm laughing because I'm thinking, what would I do? I'd be like, I identify as a
Mara,
woman.
you're
Let me on that boat.
doing a Costanza. You're elbowing Mara out of the
I
way.
identify as a woman. Please.
Identify
please.
as a woman.
This is just like the opposite of what like goes on Black Friday, where people are just fighting for things.
I
It's
know.
like,
What has
you
become
stay
of us? What has become of us? Okay. So she says, "We have lived together for many years. Where you go, I go." This incident was witnessed by numerous witnesses, both in the lifeboat and on deck. The Strausses were last seen standing arm in arm on deck. Oh. The story of Ida's bravery and loyalty became much celebrated. Rabbis spoke to their congregations about her sacrifice. Articles in Yiddish and German language newspapers extolled her courage. A popular song featuring the story, called "The Titanic's Disaster," became popular amongst Jewish Americans. Okay.
I think I know that song.
Get out of here.
It was sad. It was sad when that great ship went down to the bottom of the husbands and wives. Little children lost their lives. It was sad when that great ship went down.
Oh, God. Okay.
Whoops.
All right.
You thought I was making that up. I knew that song. The
Maybe
Titanic
it's that song. Maybe it is. So now I'm asked, what was the question I asked you before I read that, Raghunath?
I can't remember.
How does that relate? Can you relate that?
How
to
does that
Indian
relate to-
culture?
Can I relate to Indian culture? You said.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, it's the funeral pyre.
Yeah.
The thing that we like Oh, I get it. I get where you're going with this. Very
Okay,
clever.
now tying it all up.
So when the Americans came to, or the British came to India and the Portuguese came to India, they saw the rite of sati,
Yeah.
which is where a queen would say, "My husband's dying. I'm going to jump in the
Not just a
fire
queen.
too."
Not
Yeah,
just a
actually,
queen.
yeah, anybody. My husband's dying. I'm going to die too, and they would throw themselves in their husband's funeral pyre. And the British, they were completely horrified by this. They were thinking, "What barbaric
limited.
custom is this?" But that was the mood of it. If you're going to die, why do I want to live? We've spent and enjoyed our life on this planet. Let's go to the higher regions. You've lived such a noble life. It was actually a very noble thing. Then, of course, it turned ignoble over time. Actually, I can't say that. It didn't turn ignoble.
Well, Prabhupada said that. Prabhupada said that.
Okay,
so
Prabhupada said it.
But
I'm sure there were people who were just like, okay, get in the fire. You know,
well, that's
the
problem.
Yeah, but there was but that doesn't mean everybody was doing it in that mood.
So the point, my point being is, if we have this chauvinistic attitude, what's the word when you think your culture, Professor Snooky, help us with this, when you think your culture is superior to all other cultures? I'm forgetting that word.
Yes.
Someone type it out for us there. Any case, when you have that feeling of cultural superiority, right, that arrogance, that pride, you xenophobia. Thank you.
Xenophobia.
Yeah. So when you have that, you look at things, and here we look at what Ida Straus did and say, everyone says, how noble, how glorious, how brave, courageous.
Yeah.
And when you see Indian people do it, you think, oh, how barbaric,
horrible.
how
backwards cultures.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But here, anyway, this is where I really want to go with this, Raghunath.
Tell me.
If we want to advance spiritually, if we want to advance in yoga, especially particularly if we want to advance in bhakti, we have to root all of that chauvinism out of us, all of that xenophobia, ultimately all that pride out of us. There can't be a drop of it in us. We can't be that. We can't be that prideful so-called master, right? We have to be. It's a practice of trying to root out every drop of that kind of arrogance, that comes through spiritual knowledge, right? That comes through recognizing the spiritual equality of all beings, and not just knowing it on that surface level, but going deeper and deeper and deeper until there's zero pride in us, until we see, that brotherhood, that sisterhood, that connection with every living being. That's where we need to go, and it's really a life's work to kind of weed it all out so that we can actually understand the truth and experience our own true nature.
We don't even say brotherhood anymore or sisterhood, because we don't see ourselves as body. We don't see like bughood, right? We're spirithood. Let's make a new word, spirithood.
Okay.
All right. That was very good. That was very interesting little squirrel nugget.
That was take that and toast with it, Raghunath. Master toast with it.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to put that to Miss Mara. Would you burn for me? Would you burn? Did we have this conversation already? What was your answer? She said no. We talked about this on the show. I don't remember.
Yeah, I do remember that. She said no. Would you do it, Raghunath? Would you give her your space on the boat, on the lifeboat?
I was like, well, I'm thinking about putting out another CD.
I think the people need me.
I'm sort of working on a new book, Mara. Thank you. For the vegan sub, for the vegan meatball subs, though.
I've knitting a scarf here. I'm halfway done.
All right, Krishna. Okay.
All right. You ready to get into it?
All righty. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before we start the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati. Nice sticky. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated. and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. You know what?
Yeah.
We should do these Mangalacharnam. That's the name of these prayers. We should do dramatic readings of them every day. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. I think otherwise it keeps them from being just rote prayers that we don't think about. This is where our all the actors out there, Patrick Heffernan, myself, part-time actor, step into these roles, put some drama in these prayers.
Raghunath, the fact that you just mentioned that, it just connected with me, heart-to-heart connection.
Really?
Yeah, because I had an experience at the Bhakti Center last night.
Oh, was there a dramatic reading going on?
No, but in a sense there was. I have an old friend. I'm not going to mention names, but an old friend I knew when we were kids in the hardcore scene.
Really?
I was a brahmachari, served as a brahmachari, as a monk with. And then at a certain point, he left the ashram. And then he went through really hard times in life, like really hard times, like living in the street, heavy drug addiction, just like in brutal life in the street, just brutal life as a homeless person and so on.
How is he now?
He's much better now. Definitely those years took their toll.
Right.
And there was a lot to overcome, overcoming that kind of addiction is hard work, and it took years. But
you're still affected by the mind, which comes from those activities.
Sure. But in the past year or so, he's just been a regular at the Bhakti Center, and he just comes all the time, and he's really just and he's back. That same old person is back there again. And so here's my point: so I was sitting. And he was sitting right behind me, and they were doing this ritual, this homa, this ritual for Lord Nrsingadev yesterday, and part of that was chanting those prayers, the Mangalacharna, Om Jnana, and going right through them. And I could hear him behind me chanting along. He had memorized it, right? Like.
That's one thing he kept, really.
Right. I'd imagine he forgot it, in the darkest, most difficult times. But as he came back out, it's just manifesting there, all those mantras.
Mm-hmm.
And as he was chanting them, I was thinking, they stayed with him. They're deep inside, and each one of those mantras is practically like a lifeline. It's
nice way to look at it.
Yeah, it's just like even holding on to that one piece of pure spiritual energy as you go through life it is a lifeline. These are beautiful, meaningful prayers, and I was touched by that. Something about that experience really touched me. It made
just
me
to
very
hear
happy.
him chant those prayers.
Yeah, it made me very happy. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah, the Maha Mantra is a lifeline for a lot of people.
Yeah. Sure is. Because we were talking, some weeks ago, we were talking about a woman I knew, a devotee woman who, towards the end of life, she was going through some kind of what's Asperger's, or where she was like she couldn't remember who everybody, but that Maha Mantra was still in there. She would respond to that, like right underneath it all. Any case, yeah, you're right. Dramatic readings, right now. Not too dramatic, not melodramatic though.
Okay. I like that.
Oh, so we started a new chapter today, Raghunath.
Exciting, isn't it?
But I wanted to, I had a strategy here.
Tell me.
So we're starting today, Canto 5, Chapter 13. Okay? And the title of this chapter is Further Talks Between King Rahugana and Jadabharata.
Further Talks, yep.
And I believe that the next chapter is entitled The Material World as a Great Force of Enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what happens, it's not that kind of, it's not that kind of, it's like, apparently enjoyment, but the whole point
Right.
of these chapters is we think that this is
Is
how
to
we're
sh-
going to enjoy, and
is to
there's so
shine
much
light on what we are romanticizing to be enjoyment.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is. It's romanticizing it.
Yeah, but then let's look at the reality of what we do to try to enjoy and how much
We're
we suffer.
going in. Yeah. We romanticize everything. It's almost like that is what happiness is in the material world. It's a romanticizing of, we're going to do this and then we're going to feel like this and it's going to be great. We'll rent a car and we'll go here. And it doesn't always pan out as the mind makes it.
You know,
We're living in hopes over hopes, layered on hopes, romanticizing, polishing up dull things of the material world.
I think there's something in youth where we think it's just a matter of time before everything's like put in place.
That's what it is. It's the intoxicant of youth.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes when people get older, they're a little less moved by the romance of the material world.
Exactly.
Sometimes they're a little more cynical of the material world,
yeah.
you know, and less trusting. We're saying be cynical of the material world, but don't be cynical of the spiritual world.
Well, that's the point.
If you invest, I'm watching people in my life, get older, I had a great time yesterday because my old friends were there. Kaylee, Paramananda, Sachisuta. I've watched these people like grow up with me, applying spiritual life to their life. And we've all had like ups and downs in our lives. But here they are. We're in our 50s and we're all chanting together, still, despite everything. And it's like you add this to your life, you do become much more cynical than when you were 18. But you become much more trusting in yourself as a spiritual person.
Materially pessimistic, spiritually optimistic.
There we go.
Okay. Put that on the t-shirt.
Yeah.
So what happens you see, this is read every verse in the Bhagavatam, but one time in the past we kind of skipped a part, and I was thinking we do the same thing here. In a sense, it's not skipping any of the message, because what's happening here is that for like 20 verses, Jadabharta uses analogies to describe this world. He's saying, and he's going on and on. He says there's 6 kind of plunderers. There's dense bowers. There's black holes covered by grass. There's mosquitoes, ghosts, dust and whirlwinds, mirages, scary sounds of owls and crickets, shallow rivers, forest fires, carnivorous animals like jackals and wolves and lions. So he's just giving all of these metaphors. And then at the end, what happens is it seems like the king understood what he was talking about, but then it switches. It goes from sage level 3 to sage level 4 to sage level 3 or to 2. And Parikshit asks Sukadeva Goswami, what did all those analogies mean? Right? Like, what did they all represent? What are the jackals and what are the whirlwinds and, what are the mirages? What was he talking about? But what Prabhupada does is he builds those explanations into the verses in the chapter. So it's kind of like you're reading the same thing twice.
Okay.
So what I thought we would do is kind of like read it all in the next chapter where it's all explained, and actually more. It's actually Sukadeva Goswami gives even more metaphors for just how entangling this world is. Otherwise, for months we're going to be like heavy on the pessimistic side, but everything will be covered.
Skip this chapter?
Not the entire chapter, because so he lays out all these metaphors which I just mentioned,
right? And
then in text 21, the conversation switches. So why don't we jump to text 21?
I'm here. King Rahugana said, this birth as a human being is the best of all.
So this is the king speaking, yeah.
Even birth among the demigods in the heavenly planets is not as glorious as birth as a human being on this earth. Interesting.
Why so?
What is the use of the exalted position of a demigod? In the heavenly planets, due to profuse material comforts, there's no possibility of associating with devotees. So it's interesting because sometimes you'll hear about these demigods and they're very pious and they're very evolved, etc. I'm wondering if they're meaning that or some sort of like less caliber demigods. because I do understand how when everything is going great in your life, when everything is good karma and you have such good fortune, you can forget about the miseries of material existence. Like you can't forget about miseries of material existence when you're a refugee, when you're trying to, cross the border, into America and you're suffering and you don't know if you're going to get in, or if you're like living in whatever as a
Too much
slave,
suffering
or too much suffering
will distract you.
if you're a drug addict. Yeah, too much suffering will distract you. Well, too much suffering will distract you, and too much pleasure will distract you.
Right.
It seems like to really make any advancement, you got to be somewhere in the middle. So that these, they talk about hellish planets of pain. Sort of very interesting concept.
Planets of pain.
A planet of pain. A planet of pain. But so somewhere in the middle where you can sort of analyze, life is good, but life is bad too. And life is, and actually get to toss that around a bit. That's where we can make advancement. I think that's what they're talking about.
That's what he's got down, I believe. Yeah, I think so too.
But I mean, life as a demigod must be awesome. Like so awesome. You'd be like, who cares?
You just want it to go on and on.
It just goes on it's a long time. What do I care? I get whatever I want. I fly. I visit other planets for fun. Okay. Text 22. It is not. Did I not? What is the use of exalted position of a demigod? In the heavenly planets, due to profuse material comforts, there's no possibility of associating with devotees.
Yeah.
Text 22. It is not at all wonderful that simply by being covered by the dust of your lotus feet, one immediately attains the platform of pure devotional service to Adhoksaja. That's the name for Vishnu, which is not available even to the great demigods like Brahma. By associating with you just for a moment, I'm now freed from all argument, false prestige, and lack of discrimination.
False prestige. We're talking about that, right?
They're the roots of entanglement in the material world. Now I am free from all these problems. You know what would be cool? Look at the material world. Look at Earth from a demigod's position. They must be like, these losers, these poor, unfortunate losers.
They got nothing.
They are in so much illusion. Look what they're chasing. Look what they're investing their time in. Look what they're doing to their own planet. It's like they're eating their own body to try to find enjoyment, to try to satisfy their senses.
Lust.
They're killing themselves. But wait a second, who's that person over there? Then they probably see liberated souls walking the planet, and they're probably like, ooh, this person has the access key out of illusion. And look, they're being neglected. They're being overlooked. They're being laughed at. Imagine how the demigods view pure devotees. They're like, they become envious. Like, who are these guys thinking they're so deep and intelligent and wise? They're just fools themselves too. Or they might be like, but secretly envying, like they know the secrets.
Yeah, they're not entangled, right?
They're not that entangled.
They're seeing through it. So earlier in the last chapter, it kind of wrapped up with that message that to achieve this highest level of deepest spiritual understanding of connecting with Bhagavan, one has to remember. It said something like, rub the dust of the lotus feet, cover yourself, bathe oneself with the dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee. So here he's back to that, right? He's saying, I'd rather be right here on earth. I can meet people like you, right? And bathe in the dust of the lotus feet.
Next time I see you, I'm going to bathe in your dust, sir.
Well,
I'm going to tackle you. I'm going to tackle you and rub myself on your dusty feet.
But I got two
Make
questions.
sure you don't sweep your floor for like 3 weeks next time I come over. Because I want a lot of dust.
Dust ain't gonna help.
It's too clean at your house. I'll never get any dust on my body.
Well, two questions here. You mentioned the other day when the dust of the lotus feet was mentioned, you said, is that metaphorical or is that literal?
Yeah.
Right?
Do we actually want the dust, or do we want to just serve that person?
Okay. I did a little research, Raghunath.
Oh, really?
Yeah. First is the question of why are they called lotus feet in the first place? Like Krishna's feet. Why are they called lotus feet?
Okay. Here's my answer. You tell me if I'm on spot. Lotuses grow in the mud, yet they're untouched by the mud because they blossom through the swamp, blossom above the water, and they rest, and they're very, very fragrant, and they're very, very beautiful. So a lotus foot would be a regular foot touches the ground. They're considered contaminated. You don't want to touch somebody with your foot. but Krishna's feet are like lotuses. They're untouched by material contamination.
That's great. Or like a devotee's feet, although he's situated in this world.
His feet are not of this world.
Yeah, so just like the lotus is like it's down in the mud, but you don't think of the mud when you think of the lotus. You think, oh, it's beautiful. Even though it's in the mud, it is in no way degraded by the mud. It's glorious, right?
And
Fragrant.
these are coming from like this Vedic culture, which is a tropical land. So swamps in India are much more, they're not like my pond in my backyard that we all jump in. There's like alligators, there's snakes, there's like tons of like deadly mosquitoes and other bugs.
But mud was enough. We can just stick with the mud.
Well, the idea is that swamps are gross and dangerous.
All right.
And quicksand is a real thing, Kostuba.
Okay.
And the lotus is above it all. It's mixing with it, but not
but still above it.
It's still above it.
Okay, so that's a great explanation.
Boom, boom, boom.
Here's a somewhat similar explanation. And this is coming from Srila Prabhupada's commentary to Canto 1, Chapter 16, Text 6. Okay?
Yeah.
He says, the spiritual planet Goloka Vrindavan, the eternal abode of Lord Krishna. So that means within the spiritual realm, beyond the material realm. Listen to me, Raghunath. Get off the chat board. Look me in the right here. Guys.
I'm trying to ask my people if this was a Nine Inch Nails song or not.
Yeah, that's not where we want your mind right now.
No, okay.
Look right. I want it right in the eye. Up here.
Thank you.
There we go. Okay. Listen to this. This could change your life, and this is something you can carry with you. Okay.
Okay.
The
Thank
Nine
you.
Inch Nails song is.
Tell me.
The spiritual planet. This is Prabhupada writing. The spiritual planet Goloka Vrindavan, the eternal abode of Lord Krishna. So that means beyond the realm of the material world, right? It's described that it's shaped like the whorl of a lotus flower. Okay,
Fascinating, isn't it?
Even when the Lord descends to any one of the mundane planets, like here, he does so by manifesting his own abode as it is. Okay. So if Krishna enters the material realm, he brings the spiritual realm with him and manifests within it. Right.
Very cool.
Thus, his feet remain always on the same big whorl of the lotus flower. So that's why his feet are called lotus feet, because they never step into the material realm in that sense, right?
Very interesting.
And then Prabhupada also adds, his feet are also beautiful as the lotus flower. Therefore, it is said that Lord Krishna has lotus feet. Okay. Now, what does it mean to bathe in the dust? What is that all about?
How do you find this? Did you Google this?
That is the way people find things now. It wasn't my 2,500 anecdotes for all occasions.
You didn't go to a library and go through their bibliography?
No, but this is from Radhanath Swami speaking of
Okay.
this subject. He says, when we speak of the dust of the lotus feet of the spiritual master, we are speaking of humble approach to serve his instructions. Unless we humbly serve the instructions of the great souls, it is Krishna's arrangement that he never reveals himself. Interesting.
Wow. Say that again.
When we speak of the dust of the lotus feet of the spiritual master, we're speaking of taking a humble approach to serve their instructions. Unless we humbly serve the instructions of the great soul, it is Krishna's arrangement that he never reveals himself. Krishna will not reveal himself until we approach a great soul with humility and hear and serve their instructions, follow their instructions.
Wow.
Right? That's what it means to bathe in that dust. So King Rahugana here is saying, you know what? You just described the forest of the material world. You've painted a dark picture. It's going to be materially very pessimistic. And he's saying, you know what? I would rather be right here in this horrible place. If it means I can be with you, I'd rather be here than in the heavens, because I get the opportunity to bathe in the dust of your feet, to hear and follow your instructions. If I was in the heavens, I wouldn't be suffering the kind of sufferings that you just elaborated on. I would just be lost in material enjoyment. I would rather be down here in this dark, dangerous forest if I can be with you and hear your instructions.
I love this. And this is why sometimes we as devotees go through loss. Now, it's not like we say, oh, devotees always lose, devotees are always broke, devotees are always, no, everybody goes through loss. But when devotees go through loss, they're like, you know what? Krishna's purifying me. He's taking something away for my benefit. And sometimes when we have some idea of great sense gratification, that will get taken away only so we can get serious about our spiritual life. It happens again and again. And it's not just Krishna's taking away stuff from the devotees. If I'm a devotee, then I'm going to lose everything. No, everything's getting taken away from everybody all the time
already.
But we're we're seeing it with a new set of lenses.
Right.
And we also we have a new metric for what pleasure is. We used to think that pleasure just was, I'm flying first class, or I'm going to the Caribbean, or nowadays people are like, once you've sort of opt into bhakti and spiritual life, I don't want like an all-you-can-eat cruise to be happy. I want to find a place where I can do some yoga, where I can get some simple fruit, where I can be around good people. The first thing I want to find if I go traveling, I was like, is there a temple around here? Where would be a nice place to do japa around here? Stuff like that. It's like you develop a different way to measure what real pleasure is.
Yeah, like when you went down to Florida.
Yeah. So you either want something very sattvic, or you want a place that's beyond sattvic. Where are the devotees? Can I find some devotees?
There you go. Now, we just have a few more verses to finish up for today, but you're going to really like this next one, Raghunath.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I put you there we go. All right. This is text number
23.
I offer my respectful obeisances to the great personalities, whether they walk on the earth's surface as children, young boys, avadutas, or great brahmanas.
Avadutas are?
I sort of just mystical beings who are like not of this world, but they're just walking around this world, sort of like Judd Bart was.
They kind of
they're
look like
not
they're
of this
crazy or
world.
something.
Well, yeah, it can appear
They
crazy,
don't follow
but they're
any regulations, any rules.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm working towards avadut myself.
You keep working.
Yes. Or even great brahmanas, even if they are hidden under different guises. Oh, interesting. I offer my respects to all of them. By their mercy, may there be good fortune in the royal dynasties that are always offending them. By their mercy, may there be good fortune in the royal dynasties that are. What does that mean?
He's saying that on behalf of the royal dynasties, I'm offering my obeisances unto you, who I thought was a dullard, but is actually a great soul. And as a matter of fact, let's assume that there are many such souls walking this earth. Sometimes they appear like children. Sometimes they appear like avadutas. Sometimes they're great brahmanas. It's clear who they are. There's all kind of great souls walking this earth. When you're a king, you get arrogant. You start offending people. On behalf of the royal dynasties who are offending people like you all the time, I offer my obeisances so that they may have good fortune.
Wow. Interesting. It doesn't say they act like children. They say some are actually children.
They're children, yeah.
Some are actually. Isn't that interesting to think? Like there's some children out there that are liberated souls.
You have to respect everyone, right?
Yeah. Yep. And sometimes, like an avaduta, sometimes they appear to be on a spectrum. They can't function in the material world. You don't know where they're at.
You don't.
They might not be up to like some material standard of what is normal, but they have a whole internal life. We don't know.
We have to, again, release all sense of arrogance, all sense of pride, and respect every living being. Otherwise, our spirituality is at best surface level.
Yeah.
Okay, three more verses, I think.
3 more verses, Miss Mara.
So now we're switching from sage level 3 up to sage level 2. Shukadev Goswami will speak.
So now Shukadev Goswami is telling the story here. My dear king, O son of Mother Uttara, right? This is Pricket Maharaj.
Yeah.
There were some waves of dissatisfaction in the mind of Judd Bart due to his being insulted by King Rahugana.
Interesting.
Right? So he's saying here's a very, very high soul, but there were some waves of dissatisfaction. Who made him carry his palanquin, but Judd Bart neglected this. So you might get some impulse to find fault, to criticize, to take offense, but he didn't let it. We're living in a culture that is looking to be offended.
Yeah.
But here is Judd Bart setting the example. There was things that he could have been offended, and it sort of came into his senses, like, who does this guy think he is? But he's like, I'm just going to completely let this go. Because he's just controlled by the gunas, and he's an illusion, and I'm actually not going to hold resentment, and I'm going to school him with love, not just to like chastise him. I actually love this guy.
And what really opened up the channel for that will come out in this verse.
Okay. But Judd Bart neglected this, and his heart again became calm and quiet like an ocean.
Why don't you read? Don't start mid-sentence. Why don't you go ahead and start?
My dear king, O son of Mother Uttara, there were some waves of dissatisfaction in the mind of Judd Bart due to being insulted by King Rahugana, who made him carry his palanquin. But Judd Bart neglected this, and his heart again became calm and quiet like an ocean.
Oh God, there's so much right there.
Ooh.
He neglected it. Just even that right there. But
I get an urge to be angry.
Neglect.
And am I going to go? Am I going to run with that? Am I going to start like finding evidence to support my claim? Oh, that Mara. Yeah, she does do this on a regular basis. Sit there and knit while I'm giving my very, very enlightening conversation.
Neglect that thought, right?
Neglect that thought.
Okay. Good. And it became like an ocean. Quiet.
It became like an ocean.
Calm.
Although King Rahugana has insulted him, he was a Paramahamsa. Another great word, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Being a Vaishnav, he was naturally very kind-hearted, and he therefore told the king about the constitutional position of the soul. He then forgot the insult because King Rahugana pitifully begged pardon at his lotus feet.
Mm.
After this, he began to wander all over the earth, just as before.
He just went right back into the dullard thing and started walking around.
Yeah, just started walking around, doing his thing.
Rahugana may have been like, okay, but who's going to carry the palanquin again?
I still got a flat tire of sorts with this palanquin.
Still need someone. Okay.
After receive.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it's 7:01. I can't do another verse.
No, just 2 more verses and we're done.
Okay. After receiving lessons from the great devotee Judd Bart, King Rahugana of the state of Sovira became completely aware of the constitutional position of the soul. Boom. He thus gave up the bodily conception completely.
Nice.
My dear king, whoever takes shelter of the servant of the Lord is certainly glorified because he can without difficulty give up the bodily conception. Boo. You take shelter of the servant, you don't take shelter of God, you take shelter of the servant of God. I love this.
That's the formula.
This is the magic formula revealed in the Bhagavatam. King Prickett then told Sukadeva Swami, my dear Lord, O great devotee sage, you are omniscient. You have very nicely described the position of the conditioned soul who's compared to a merchant in the forest. From these instructions, intelligent people can understand that the sense of a person in the bodily conception are like the rogues and the thieves in that forest.
The senses.
And one's wives and children are like jackals. And I guess husbands too. If you're a woman, hearing this, the husband is like a jackal. And other ferocious animals. However, it is not easy for the unintelligent to understand the purport of this story because it's difficult to extricate the exact meaning from an allegory. I therefore request Your Holiness to give the direct meaning.
Okay.
So I wish we had more time to like tease that out a bit too.
Well, we can start there next week.
Let's start there because it starts condemning family and seems like
there's going to be plenty. Believe me, there's going to be plenty of explaining to do as we go through the next chapter.
Okay. All right, we'll go there.
We're going to deal with all of that.
All right, let's talk to Nitya Siddhi, Miss Mara. Nitya Siddhi, Krishnadas. All right, Missy. Missy?
All right, I got some good ones today. Pride magnifies difference.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Pretty good, right?
Yes, very good.
Our mantras are a lifeline.
Hang on.
Yes, I like that.
We're living on hopes, piled on hopes.
We're living on hopes, piled on hopes.
Be cynical of the material world and invest in the spiritual world.
Great.
Yeah.
See through the entanglement.
See through it.
Be like the lotus above the mud of the material world.
Lotus-like.
Everything is being taken away everywhere all the time.
Mwah, 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 mwah. Mara and her bad news takeaways to get you depressed for the rest of the day.
Neglect thoughts of being offended.
Oh, that's a good one.
I use that one all the time.
Neglect.
Oh.
Too much suffering or pleasure will distract you.
Well,
Take shelter of the servant of God.
Yep.
the formula.
And
Mhm.
women and children on the lifeboats first.
Oh, remember that, Raghunath. Okay? And no suddenly changing your gender identification at that moment. Now look at Karuna. She's really got
Why
something
them?
going on.
Why did they get the boats? Why does Martine get the boat and Karuna get the boat? And Megan McDonald, why do you get in the boat? I'm going to wrestle Megan McDonald. You give me that seat in the boat right now.
Where do animals fit into the whole thing?
Yeah, where do animals fit? Animals are people too. How about men and animals in the boat?